This is the only microphone I have that works, so ignore the big stick I'm holding. Today's injustice that I'll be talking about will be jobs. More importantly, companies that make the jobs. Obviously, jobs are what make the world go around. We all need money. We need to pay rent. We all need to pay our taxes. No matter what walk of life you are, you need to get a job. That's inheriting your parents' real estate agent, or that's getting a labor-intensive job. And for most of us, it's the latter. Most of us need to get a labor-intensive job. However, as time goes on, companies start to try to cut corners and to save costs so they can get even richer. Now, you might think that those cuts will be in the higher up positions where, they have to do less intensive work, but no, it's usually in the work where people at the bottom have to do the most work, and it causes a lot of lives and a lot of tragedy to happen. Some companies would rather lower the work conditions along with use cheap foreign labor or even child labor. Amazon is a prolific company that uses these bad tactics. They have a history of denying their workers their breaks, their bathroom breaks, and even have a record of forcing their employees to work overtime. During the holiday season, this is really prominent since most workers have to put in mandatory overtime in order for Amazon to reach those high expectations of 3-day delivery. This has come to a point where workers have been peeing in bottles in the facilities because their managers won't let them go to the bathroom. Recently, a study made by Business Insider India found that Amazon workers in Washington experienced 3 times as much scato and muscle stress as the national average. The unfortunate part of this whole thing is that many rely on these Amazon wages to survive. Amazon pays a starting wage of $15 an hour, and for many, these are the only livable wages they can work with. Amazon is an integral part of these minimum wage workers, and it's horrible that they have to endure these horrible labor practices. Another company that uses these bad practices is Nike. Nike uses cheap external labor. Many companies outsource their work to other third world countries, more underdeveloped countries, because it's usually cheaper. Nike outsources the work to Indonesia, which isn't all that bad. A big company can really help these underdeveloped companies raise their capita. However, Nike doesn't pay fairly. In an effort to expose Nike for their unethical practices, Jim Keed made a documentary named Behind the Swoosh. In this documentary, Jim Keed travels to Indonesia for a month to live on the Nike wages. In that month, he loses a ton of weight and can barely afford for groceries. When Jim tries to approach the CEO to talk about the situation, the CEO just deflects and tells him to go away. Similar to Amazon, Indonesian workers rely on these poor paying jobs to survive. There's not many job opportunities in Indonesia due to the government. As the documentary states, Nike is maximizing profit at all costs to humanity and nature. Another company that uses outsourced unethical labor is Nestle. Now, if you don't live under a rock, you probably know that Nestle as a company sucks. Now, the most common criticism Nestle gets is from the way they gather water and sell it. They steal water from underdeveloped countries and sell it to countries that already have clean water, like the United States. However, I'll be talking about how Nestle uses child slave labor in the cocoa bean farms. Similar to Nike, Nestle outsources their farming to other countries. In this instance, it's Africa. However, these African farmers use cheap child slave labor in order to farm these cocoa beans. Sometimes childs are in the farms the entire day and have to carry hundreds and hundreds of pounds of cocoa beans and barely get paid at all. According to Cracked, in 2001, Nestle joined the 2 other big boys of the chocolate world, Mars and Hershey's, and pledged to phase out the worst forms of child labor within 4 years. But every time the deadline gets extended, they failed to meet it. Even when Nestle was sent into court for using child slave labor, the court just dismissed it because they didn't know how to prosecute international affairs. Because that's never stopped America before. And the cherry on top of this whole ordeal is that Nestle's lawyers said that the makers of the gas made for the Nazis to kill the Jews weren't prosecuted. Then it makes no sense that they are being prosecuted themselves. If you have to compare yourselves to the Nazis, I don't think your argument is very strong. So what can you as a viewer do? Realistically, not much. These companies have a really big monopoly on their own sort of industries, and in the current political climate that we live in, these companies can just continue lobbying in money for laws that they agree with. All thanks to our favorite president, Ronald Reagan. Trickle down economics doesn't work. Just does it. But realistically, what you could do is boycotting. You could boycott the companies and basically hurt them financially, but what one person doing it isn't really gonna help. You have to rally up a group of people to do it. And for Nestle, it's pretty hard. Nestle owns so many brands. They own from chocolate to water to baby formula to cereal to dog food and even healthcare and nutrition brands. It's pretty insane. However, if you really want to make an impact, the best way you can do it is by donating to charities trying to reverse Nestle's damage. One of these charities is the Thirst Project. The Thirst Project aims to give every developing country fresh water, something Nestle could do very easily, by the way. Amazon is in a similar boat, but you could always use other delivery services. And cancel your Prime subscription. They hire the price for it, and none of the money is going to the workers. You can also donate to Amazon unions. Amazon loves to union bust to make sure that their workers don't get their voices heard. Same thing goes for Nike. Just boycott Nike. Not much you can do otherwise. Nike holds a really big power in the sports media. There's other sports brands, obviously. Sure, they might not be as iconic as the Air Jordans or any other Nike products, but it really depends on what you think is ethical. Do you value more overpriced shoes that have a lot of history behind them and look nice, or Indonesian families and the Indonesian community? If you were to take one thing away from this whole video, is that you should never trust big companies. If they seem like they're doing something good for the environment or for the workers, conduct your own research, because they're probably not. It's probably just a whole marketing scheme.
I would say is that they're completely when it comes to spending any time not doing work. Like, the peeing in bottles thing is not that far from the truth. It's like if you go to the bathroom, you gotta make up for all that missed time when you get back by working harder. So, and you're not really allowed to miss that much time. And they definitely don't play about them breaks. So you got between clocking out and clocking in, it's 30 minutes. On either end of those clock ins and clock outs, you have 5 minutes to get to a time clock. Any more than that, then you're like going overboard in their definition. So you got 5 minutes to get to a time clock before you clock out and 5 minutes to get to your station after you clock back in. So yeah, it's kind of, they got pretty high standards.